Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I know it's been forever, and from the bottom of my heart, you have my deepest apologies for the lack of content, but more than anything, for the lack of contact. People have reached out to us and been trying to get hold of us, and it's, we're just dealing with life. That's all I can tell you. I'm not trying to give everybody excuses today. We've just been dealing with life, and everybody listening has to deal with life, and there's a lot of people who have worse things going on in their lives than we do. So I really don't want to get into all the details, but to tell you, technology has failed me. That's one of my biggest problems at the moment is my computer's gone. My replacement failed as well that they sent, and I'm back on a borrowed computer again. That's why I'm having difficulty answering questions and getting contact out and information and stuff like that. It just has been difficult. And then we're just dealing with life. We've lost more family members. We've just been dealing with health issues. Jan herself is doing wonderful. Her cancer is behind her. She had her report out a couple of weeks ago. She's healing from that. And it's only been 4 or 5 months since she's had her last treatment, radiation and stuff. So she's still healing from all that stuff and getting her strength back. And she's busy being a nurse. And she loves every moment of it. It's incredible, the stories that she tells me and the people that she meets. Myself, I'm doing fine, but I have to remind you, I'm saying this with a smile. I'm saying this with a smile and with love in my heart, all right? And with many blessings surrounding me. I have Parkinson's, I have LBD. The Parkinson's I can keep under control most of the time, but when it does come out, and I don't have a whole lot of control of it at that point, and there's not much I can do with it, I'm just frozen. The LBD is a little bit different situation. That's my biggest issue. I've told you before. It's kind of a silent demon. It's Alzheimer's basically, and when it says, "Hey Rick, we're going to take off for a couple of weeks, and we want you to go with us," I'm chuckling about this, but I don't have a choice in the matter, and I'm along for the ride. Anyway, I'm back. I know where I am and who I am today, and I'm talking, and I can speak and move around a little bit at the same time. And I'm saying this with, again, a chuckle in my voice because I deal with this every day, and I'm sure it comes off very blunt to some people and probably in very poor taste. Again, I deal with it every single day, so to me it's just life, and it's just something I talk about sometimes that comes out. And I'm just explaining something too. Life is great. I'm enjoying what time I have, and I'm trying to make the best of it, and I'm having a blast doing it. So, not a bad day here, no bad things happening. Again, very blessed. I want to make sure everybody understands that. But sometimes life pulls on you hard, and you have to kind of stop and regroup and get control of things again, right? That's what we've been doing. So, again, I'm deeply sorry. My days of doing videos are probably coming to an end. I told you one day I was going to have to do that, and I told you I wouldn't just stop it. I would at least come on, or Jan would come on, and somebody would come on and tell you that it's over. So I apologize for the delay, and hopefully it didn't upset too many people. The plants are doing wonderful. I've actually had to give away a few of them to help get some of the workload off me. And Jan as well, she's busy. They're doing great. I'm feeding about 160 to 165 parts per million. Maybe a little more every once in a while, maybe a little bit less. The only time they get water without just straight water is when it rains on them. Other than that, every time I give them water, it has nutrients and especially calcium in it. I never give them water it doesn't have some form of calcium in it. Whether I'm using calcium nitrate or CalMag, but there's always calcium in the water. I'm feeding the Jax 51226 with the calcium nitrate is what I was feeding, and it is what I'm feeding, but I'm not using it as often. I've cut back, and I'm basically using my calcium nitrate with the micros, which I've shown before. I'm cutting back on my potassium a little bit because I believe I was getting too much potassium and it's starting to block my magnesium absorption. So no matter how much Epsom salts I give them or how much magnesium I give them, they're still showing issues with it. So since I've cut back on my potassium, every one of my plants has greened up and gotten very, very even color and are doing much, much better now. So I'm still using the jacks, I'm just not using it as often. So I'm using the micros probably more often than anything. I'm also sprinkling the Dolomec lime on them. I've done it, I think, twice since they've been out this summer. And I will remind everybody that I'm not spraying for bugs or pests or anything. My garden is full of aphids and mealybugs and spider mites. And we've had horrible high temperatures, but the orchids have just sailed right through it without a blink. Not a bug, not a pest, nothing. Frogs, lots of frogs, but other than that, no mealybugs, no scale, no spider mites, nothing, nothing. No grasshoppers, nothing. They've done very, very well this year. Now, I don't anticipate as big a bloom as I had last year because I couldn't feed them all summer long like I was supposed to. So they are growing, they are strong, they are healthy, they look great, but I don't think they're going to bloom quite as hard as I got last year. Last year was an incredible bloom. But they are maturing, and I'm seeing a lot of plants with buds and sheaths and stuff on them that I didn't have last year. So there is some good stuff to come. We'll see. We'll see. I'm doing my absolute best to care for these, but when the moment comes where I have to find a home for them, I'm going to have to find a home for them. But meanwhile, let me show you how things are going and how they're doing. I've got you on a tripod because I'm just too shaky today to probably do anything and help show all the plants. But they're doing wonderful. Renanthera, Dancing Lady, Gower Ramsey with a nice bloom spike on it. Let me pop you off and see if I can't go slow and steady here because I can't show you as well with the tripod. The Bobophyllum Wilbur Chang, big new growth on it, doing really, really well. Seems to like its basket. Moss has taken over, done really, really well in there. And that's just in big chunks of cedar. I don't know what to say other than just, all the growth, all the plants have just massive growths on them, lots and lots of new growths on them. They've all done really, really well. Color looks great. I'm 3 years into using gravel, pea gravel, river rock, lava rock, and I absolutely love it as a media. I think it's probably one of the best things you can do as an orchid grower to grow in. It's just tremendous. I have had to repot a couple of plants and they come out of it really easy. They don't really grab onto the rock too much, not too bad. The lava rock they do, but I just tap the pot, break it a little bit, and the pieces what falls away. I put it into a bigger pot and put gravel around it, and they've done very, very well. One of the dendrobiums blooming, burgundy black, I believe this one is. Aggregatums did really, really well this year. Lots and lots and lots of growth on them. Dendrobium Chen Chow, beautiful, really fragrant spike on it. One of my favorite little dendrobiums, a really tight clustering type, evergreen, keeps its leaves. Just lots of bloom spikes. The dendrobiums did really well this year, lots of growth on them. A Wanagera apple blossom. This is a little plant I was going to throw out, remember? And then it turns out it was a big calcium hog, and look at the big new growth on it now. And it bloomed for me last year first time, so this year it'll be even better. But you just don't realize how small the plants are, how little, or how baby they were, really, how young they were until you start to get some full-size adult growth on them. It's another reason it wasn't blooming. It was just way too young. All plants have thickened up. Just the gravel has done great. The plants don't fall over out here in the sunlight or in the wind and rain. It doesn't ever get too wet. You can't overwater them. It doesn't hold on to nutrients. It maintains a nice neutral pH so that pH doesn't drop real low, so it doesn't get out of the range where they can't absorb nutrients and feed properly. Look at the beautiful growth on it. Calcium, calcium, calcium. And those hormones also, those hormones help with that root growth. You get tremendous, tremendous upper and lower growth on the plants with those hormones too. Remember that the upper part produces hormones that tell the plant to grow roots, and the roots produce hormones that tell the plant to grow upper growth. Beautiful trade-off. Nodosa, Moss Major times Nodosa Remar, doing really, really well, taking over that basket. Just a few stragglers, but Banfildera, Mystic Maze, blooming, actually it's almost finished. The Sherry Baby had a beautiful 5-foot spike on it, and the frogs broke it off, but it's got another spike that's come up over here. It's growing, get a nice size. The gravel does not crush the roots, like it says in the books. It says in the books, I see a lot written that don't use gravel or stone because it's too heavy, it crushes the roots. That's just absolutely ridiculous. I go out there and show you my driveway where the roots of the trees have lifted up and broken and cracked it. It doesn't do that, trust me. It doesn't harm the roots at all. They thrive in it. It creates a nice little moist area for them to get their roots down into it. And if you'll notice, on a lot of my pots, I don't get a lot of arrow roots. They keep their roots down in the pot, seeking out that moisture. Once they start to develop some roots and get some root mass down in there, it creates its own little, ecosystem down in there. It's moist, it stays damp, it's dark, it's what the roots want. If an orchid is growing on a tree, it's not going to. Do you think the roots are going to grow over the surface out in the open, or do you think they're going to seek out the cracks and the crevices and the little holes and stuff and push their roots down into that more so? Or are they going to keep all the roots just right on the surface? They're going to go for the cracks and the crevices and the deep little spots because that's where the moisture stays. It doesn't dry out as fast in there. It's darker. There's more of a chance for food and stuff of that nature to accumulate down there where they can feed than there is right on the upper outer surface, if that makes sense. So slipper plant has a couple of big beautiful growths on it. It ought to have a big beautiful bloom this year. Look at the spikes on that fowl, how it stacked up its leaves, just doing great. Just lots of growth on them. Vandas. I did lose a leaf or two on a Vandas. Renanthera as well. They don't have those bulbs. They don't have the canes or bulbs like Cattleyas, Oncidiums, and Dendrobiums have. They don't have any source for reserves, really, just their leaves. So they have to have meals a lot closer and a lot more steady and a lot more regular. When they miss a few meals, they will drop those lower leaves. They'll suck nutrients out of those lower leaves, especially if they're in a strong growth mode like they are now out here. The temperatures are high. So when mine didn't get fed like they were supposed to, they started dropping lower leaves. Orchids that have those bulbs have a little bit more of a reserve system. Even like the Maxillaria tenfolia, it has a little bulb, so it has more reserve. It can pull some of the nutrients it needs for those, the mobile nutrients anyway, it can pull out for the new growth and replenish them later on. So it's less likely to drop those growths on it. But on plants like a Phalaenopsis or a Vanda, they have to have a constant, steady supply of nutrients, and especially calcium, and they have to have a lot of hormones as well, or they start to drop lower leaves and have issues with their roots. If you want lots of beautiful tips on the roots of Vandas and Phalaenopsis, make sure you give them lots of that kelp and seaweed. Those are two plants I believe really depend on the hormones. And Cyclia, nice new growths on that. Schomburgia, that has just absolutely gone crazy on that piece of wood and has more new growths coming out on it. Beautiful roots. And there's some of the phals are over here, hanging in, doing well. Some of them have really put on some growth this year. That's one of my favorites. It just really seems to love that piece of wood. Anyway, thank you again for all the kind words, the thoughts, the prayers, the messages, and I'm sorry for the lack of contact. I'm going to keep doing this as long as I can, and I can't thank you guys enough for all your support and your kindness. It just means the world to me. Anyway, I hope I've helped somebody with how to grow orchids. I hope I've answered questions before. I don't know how many more questions I'll be answering in the future, or how many more shows I'll be doing in the future, but I hope I've helped at least a couple of people with how to grow orchids and given some information that'll make people think a little bit differently. It's hard to find good information on orchid growth, not cultural information and stuff like that. Environmental information, yes, but it's actually on how they utilize their nutrients and what nutrients are important to them and what nutrients they don't need around them, like phosphorus, potassium. Not a lot of that. They don't need a lot of that. What makes them bloom, what makes them drop their leaves, what makes them grow roots, what makes them not grow roots, etc., etc. I hope I've answered some of those questions and got some people to think a little bit different. And I hope I can do a few more shows anyway and answer a few more questions. But until then, thank you again, and thanks for watching and thanks for listening. Have a great day, everybody.